On a distant, desolate alien world, the sky crackled with dark clouds as a deadly storm began to consume the landscape. The planet, once bustling with advanced technology, was now a shadow of its former self. Tall metallic structures that once gleamed with futuristic precision were now reduced to rubble. Alien ships soared through the sky, retreating from the destruction below, leaving nothing but the silence of a dying world. In the midst of this chaos, a small, unique creature crawled through the ruined city. Its appearance was strange, a blend of alien features, slender, with shimmering scales, and large, expressive eyes that conveyed deep intelligence. It resembled a pet more than anything else, a creature once cared for by its alien masters, now abandoned. Its eyes were wide with confusion, and its soft, whimpering noises echoed through the wreckage. As the camera panned out, we saw the true extent of the devastation. The alien masters, once proud and technologically superior, fled in their ships, leaving the pet behind. They had no time to save it. Their mission was to escape the dying planet, to find safety elsewhere. The creature, loyal and trusting, was left alone. Its masters, who had once provided care and shelter, had cast it aside without a second thought. The storm that raged across the planet was not just a natural disaster. It was a catastrophic event that had destroyed everything in its wake. The clouds above were thick and swirling, as if the very atmosphere of the planet was collapsing. The alien pet, now lost and terrified, found itself alone in this apocalyptic scene, abandoned by those it had trusted most. As the pet struggled to make its way through the city's shattered streets, the camera zoomed in on its face, capturing the helplessness in its eyes. The pet's small body seemed so fragile compared to the towering remnants of the once proud alien civilization. The ground beneath it shook as debris fell from the skies, but it pressed on, driven by survival instinct. There was no one left to help. The pet's features were a stark contrast to the devastation around it. Its scales shimmered faintly under the dim, stormy light, and its eyes flickered with a spark of life. It was no ordinary pet. There was intelligence behind those eyes, an awareness that it was the only living being left on the planet. But that intelligence was of no use in the face of such overwhelming destruction. The creature was alone. As it moved cautiously through the ruins, the pet's eyes would dart around, scanning the environment for any sign of help. Its movements were hesitant, as if it couldn't quite comprehend the magnitude of what had happened. The once glorious city was now nothing more than a graveyard of broken buildings and shattered technology. In its earlier days, the creature had lived among the aliens, surrounded by advanced tech, devices that could cloak entire ships and manipulate energy fields. Now, all that was left were the remnants of that civilization, malfunctioning cloaking devices and broken energy cores scattered across the landscape. The tension of the scene was palpable. The storm raged on, and the pet, now utterly alone, was left to scavenge whatever it could find to survive. It darted between the shadows of collapsed structures, occasionally stopping to sniff the air, its sensitive senses alert for any danger. The futuristic tech that had once been a comfort to it was now just a reminder of everything that had been lost. Each step the pet took brought it closer to the realization that there was no one left to save it. It had been abandoned, cast aside in the name of survival. The storm continued to howl, the wind picking up speed, carrying with it a chilling sense of finality. The audience could feel the weight of the pet's isolation. The creature, once a trusted companion to its masters, was now left to face its own fate. The camera lingered on the pet's eyes for a moment longer, a silent plea for help that went unanswered. It was as if the creature was asking, why? Why had it been left behind? Why was it the one to suffer? It had done nothing wrong. It had only been loyal, only been there when needed. But loyalty meant nothing in the face of disaster. The storm began to pick up in intensity, the howling winds threatening to tear the city apart. The pet, sensing the danger, hurried to find shelter. It crawled into the remnants of a fallen building, its small form barely fitting into the space left between the crumbling walls. But even in the safety of the ruins, the pet could feel the storm closing in. It was a race against time, a race to survive, to find something, anything, that could help it escape the impending doom. As the storm's fury reached its peak, the camera zoomed out, revealing the full scale of the destruction. The alien pet, now little more than a speck against the backdrop of the dying planet, was left to face the storm alone. The audience's hearts tightened with a sense of helplessness. How could this tiny creature survive when even its masters had given up on it? The alien pet's fate seemed sealed. Yet, as the storm raged on, a spark of hope glimmered in the distance. Through the dense clouds, the faint silhouette of a ship could be seen. Human, not alien. The ship, unaware of the pet's existence, would soon find itself drawn to the chaos. Would it be too late to save the abandoned pet, or would the creature perish in the heart of the storm, forgotten by all who had once cared for it? The story was far from over, and the audience was left on the edge of their seats, eager to see what would happen next. Would this creature find a new hope in the humans who might discover it, or would it become yet another victim of the brutal storm? The vast expanse of space stretched out before the human fleet, a collection of ships gliding silently through the void. Their destination was an unknown planet, a place that had been left behind by many species, seemingly unworthy of exploration. But the humans had different plans. They were resourceful, always searching for ways to expand their reach, for new technologies that could push them even further ahead in the great intergalactic race. The captain, a seasoned soldier with years of combat experience under his belt, stared at the planet's surface as the fleet descended toward it. The crew of the ship was divided. Some were eager for the mission, hoping to find something valuable that would turn the tide in the ongoing war with a powerful alien empire. Others were more skeptical, dismissing the planet as just another desolate rock. "There's nothing here," one crew member remarked. "Why are we wasting time on a planet that's clearly been abandoned by everyone else?" But Captain Marshall, the leader of the mission, wasn't so quick to dismiss it. There was something about this planet, something that didn't sit right with him. His instincts, honed through countless battles and near-death experiences, told him that there was more to this place than met the eye. The tension among the crew was palpable as they prepared to land, but Marshall remained calm. His sharp eyes scanned the data feeds, looking for anything unusual, anything that might give him a clue as to why this planet had been marked for exploration. As the fleet touched down, the landscape below seemed barren. The surface was cracked, with large patches of scorched earth, evidence of some long-forgotten conflict. No signs of life were apparent, but Marshall's gut told him to stay alert. "Keep your eyes open," he ordered his crew, his voice low and steady. "This place might be empty, but that doesn't mean we're alone." The ship's landing gear settled onto the cracked surface with a deep metallic thud. Dust swirled in the air as the crew disembarked, their boots crunching against the hardened ground. The captain led the way, his hand resting on the sidearm at his hip, ready for anything. His mind flashed back to his past, a life filled with battles, betrayals, and moments where survival depended on trusting no one but yourself. It had been years since he'd allowed anyone into his heart, but now, standing on this strange planet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, needed help. As the team moved forward, navigating through the eerie silence of the alien landscape, they came across strange ruins. Broken buildings and half-destroyed structures towered over them, their purpose long forgotten. The air was heavy with a strange energy, as if the land itself was holding its breath. And then they saw it. At first, it was just a small, motionless figure lying among the rubble. But as they drew closer, the captain's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement. It was a creature, something they had never seen before. The alien pet, weak and barely conscious, looked up at them with large, pleading eyes. Its body, delicate and covered in strange, shimmering scales, was battered from the harsh conditions of the planet. It appeared to be an abandoned pet of some kind, left to die in the desolation. "Captain, it's just a pet," one of the crew members said dismissively, But Marshall's eyes remained locked on the creature. There was something about it, something that called to him. He could see the pet's suffering, its fragility, and it reminded him of a time long ago when he had been abandoned, left to fight for his survival against overwhelming odds. "It's not just a pet," Marshall replied, his voice firm. "This creature is alive, and it needs our help." Despite the objections of some crew members, Marshall ordered a rescue mission. The alien pet, though weak and struggling to stand, seemed to recognize the human's presence. It tried to move toward them, but its legs buckled beneath it, and it collapsed back onto the ground. The captain's heart ached as he watched it struggle. This was no ordinary animal. It was intelligent, just like them. And it was alone, just like he had been. As the crew carefully approached the creature, they used their advanced technology to scan its body. The pet's biological readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. There was a strange energy emanating from it, an energy that seemed to resonate with the technology on their ship. The captain's curiosity was piqued, and he ordered a closer examination. "What kind of animal is this?" One of the crew members muttered under his breath, skeptical of the whole situation. But Marshall, ever the soldier, remained focused. "Doesn't matter what it is. We'll figure that out later. For now, we get it back to the ship." The crew carefully lifted the creature, making sure not to harm it. As they made their way back to the ship, Marshall couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The planet, once thought to be devoid of life, was now proving to be full of surprises, and he had a feeling this pet wasn't as helpless as it seemed. Inside the ship, the team began to tend to the creature's wounds. As they worked, they noticed something strange. The pet's body, despite its physical fragility, seemed to be radiating energy. The crew's scanners began to glitch as the pet's power interacted with the ship's systems. Lights flickered, and the ship's cloaking devices, which had been malfunctioning earlier, began to function properly again. The pet, though barely conscious, was somehow controlling the ship's tech. "What the hell is going on?" one crew member exclaimed, watching the pet closely. Marshall stood at the back of the room, observing silently. It was clear now that this creature wasn't just an innocent pet. It had abilities far beyond anything the crew could have imagined. As the crew continued to study the creature, the captain took a moment to reflect on his own past. He remembered a time when he, too, had been abandoned, left behind on a distant world, alone, with nothing but his instincts to guide him. It had been the darkest time of his life, but it had made him who he was today, a man who trusted no one but himself. Yet now, in the face of this alien pet's suffering, he realized something had changed. This creature, abandoned just like he had been, was reaching out for help, and Marshall knew he couldn't leave it behind. He turned to his crew, his voice low but resolute. "We're going to find out what this pet can do. We owe it that much." His crew exchanged uncertain glances, but they knew better than to argue with their captain. Marshall had always been a leader who took risks, and this time was no different. They had to find out why this planet and this creature were so important. Outside, the storm that had raged on the planet's surface began to intensify. The crew could feel the tension rising, both within the ship and on the planet below. As they prepared to investigate further, they couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. There was something on this planet, something dangerous, that they hadn't yet uncovered. But for now, all they could do was wait and watch as the alien pet continued to reveal its strange powers, unlocking secrets that would change the fate of the entire crew and the future of humanity forever. The hum of the ship's engines reverberated through the metal walls as the crew worked diligently to care for the strange alien pet they had found. The creature, now comfortably nestled in a makeshift medical bay, was recovering from the physical trauma it had endured on the barren planet. Its delicate form shimmered faintly, and every now and then, a pulse of soft energy radiated from its body. Marshall, the captain, stood at the threshold of the room, observing silently. There was more to this creature than met the eye. He could feel it. "Captain, you need to see this," one of the crew members called out from the tech station. Marshall turned, his eyes narrowing as he stepped over to the console. On the screen, the pet's energy signature was growing stronger. At first, they thought it was just an anomaly, a glitch in their equipment. But soon, the realization dawned upon them. The pet was somehow interacting with the ship's systems. This can't be possible, muttered Lieutenant Harris, a seasoned engineer who had seen her fair share of alien tech. The pet's energy readings, they're syncing with our ship's power grid. It's controlling our systems. Marshall's brow furrowed as he leaned in closer to the screen. The creature's energy pulses were interfacing with their ship, altering its power levels and even affecting the ship's cloaking device. It was as if the pet had somehow tapped into the heart of their technology, manipulating it with ease. As the crew worked feverishly to understand the alien's powers, the pet remained peaceful, almost as if it were unaware of its abilities. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. Their own technology was far from primitive, yet here they were, watching as this fragile being bent it to its will. But the mystery only deepened. If the pet could control their tech, then what else could it do? Without warning, the ship's sensors flared to life, alerting the crew to an incoming threat. Marshall's heart skipped a beat as the unmistakable signal of enemy ships appeared on their radar. They were not alone. "Captain, we've got company," Harris said, her voice tight with tension. "It's an alien drone fleet, hundreds of them. They're heading straight for us." Marshall's mind raced. They hadn't expected an attack so soon. He knew they were outmatched. The drones were sent by a powerful alien race that had been waging war against humanity for years. Their ships were faster, stronger, and technologically advanced beyond anything the humans had encountered. And now, it seemed, the drones were coming to reclaim the alien pet. "Activate shields," Marshall barked. "Get us out of here now." But it was already too late. The drones were closing in fast. Their sleek, metallic forms glinted in the dim light of space, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. Marshall's crew scrambled to their positions, but their ship was severely outgunned. Even with the most advanced weaponry at their disposal, they stood little chance against the sheer might of the drone fleet. Suddenly, the alien pet, still lying on the medical table, seemed to react. Its body pulsed with a bright, radiant energy, and the ship's systems began to flicker. The crew watched in stunned silence as the pet's energy grew stronger, its light enveloping the entire room. The lights on the ship dimmed, and a low hum filled the air. Then, without warning, a wave of energy shot out from the pet. The ship's shields flared to life, glowing bright against the encroaching drones. But it wasn't just the shields that activated. The pet's energy extended beyond the ship, creating a protective barrier around the humans and pushing the incoming drones back with an invisible force. "Look at that," Harris shouted. "It's creating a force field. It's defending us." The drones, momentarily stunned, regrouped and began to fire their weapons, but the pet's energy shield held strong. Blasts of concentrated energy hit the barrier, but the shield absorbed them, deflecting the attacks with ease. The crew stared, slack-jawed, as the pet continued to defend them, its energy growing stronger with each passing second. "This thing's power is beyond anything we've ever seen," Lieutenant Harris whispered. "We've got to find out how to harness it." Marshall, his mind racing, realized the full weight of the situation. The pet wasn't just a helpless creature. It was a weapon, an untapped resource that could change the course of the war. The drones would not stop until they had captured it, but with the pet's help, they might just have a chance at survival. Marshall turned to his crew, his eyes sharp and filled with determination. "Get the pet to the main deck. We need it on the bridge now. I want it close to the ship's core," he ordered. "We can't waste any more time. If we don't figure out how to use its powers, we're dead." The crew rushed into action, carefully carrying the alien pet to the ship's core. As they moved, the pet's energy shield continued to hold, protecting them from the relentless barrage of drone fire. It was clear that the pet was more than just a passive participant in this battle. It was an active force, guiding their survival with its extraordinary abilities. Back on the bridge, the crew worked to interface their technology with the pet's power. The ship's control systems began to glow, resonating with the aliens' energy. The main engines surged to life, and the cloaking device hummed in the background, flickering to full operation. For the first time since the attack began, Marshall felt a glimmer of hope. "This is it," he muttered to himself. "This pet, it's the key." Just as the drones launched another offensive, the pet's energy spiked. The ship's systems reacted in tandem, and a burst of energy shot from the ship's engines, sending a powerful shockwave out into space. The drones were thrown off course, their systems momentarily disabled by the force of the blast. Marshall watched as the drone fleet faltered, their ships scattering and retreating into the depths of space. They had bought themselves time, but this was only the beginning. The alien race that had sent the drones was coming for them, and they would not stop until the pet was in their possession. But with the creature's power now intertwined with their technology, the humans were no longer the underdogs. They had a fighting chance. Marshall's grip tightened around the controls. "Prepare for battle. We're not running anymore. We're going to fight back." The crew nodded in unison, ready for the fight ahead. They had something the aliens didn't, a powerful ally and the will to survive. With the pet's hidden powers now revealed, the tide of the war had begun to shift in humanity's favor. The battle for their survival was far from over, but with the pet at their side, they finally had the chance to turn the tables. And so, the ship raced forward into the unknown, ready to face the alien empire head-on. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome uncertain. But one thing was clear: the pet had unleashed a power that could change everything, and humanity would stop at nothing to protect it. The hum of the ship had taken on a steady rhythm as the crew settled into their roles. Everyone now had one clear focus: protect the alien pet at all costs. The creature's powers had shifted the balance of the war, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, humanity had an advantage. The enemy alien fleet had been pushed back, and the crew was eager to learn more about the pet's capabilities, hoping to harness its strength before the aliens made another attempt at capturing it. But not everyone was on board with this plan. Not everyone trusted the pet, its abilities, or the potential danger it posed. Private Jason Cole, a soldier who had served with the crew for years, stood apart from the rest, his eyes flickering nervously as he watched the pet from the corner of the hangar bay. His thoughts raced with fear and doubt. The pet's power was growing, and the more he saw, the more he felt the looming threat of what might happen if the creature was left unchecked. To him, it wasn't a powerful ally. It was a ticking time bomb. Cole had always been a pragmatist, but this was something else. The pet's ability to manipulate the ship's systems was beyond anything he could comprehend. It had single-handedly protected them from the alien drones, and with each passing hour, it seemed to get stronger. What if the creature was too dangerous to control? What if it turned against them? Humanity couldn't afford to let that happen. But how could he stop it without anyone noticing? His mind made up, Cole took a deep breath and walked toward the ship's control room. He needed to act fast. The captain and the others were too focused on the pet's potential to see the risks it posed. He knew what he had to do. In the control room, the crew was busy making plans, running diagnostics on the ship, and preparing for the next move. Marshall, the captain, stood at the center, his eyes scanning the screens with unwavering focus. He trusted his crew. He had no reason to doubt them. But something in the air felt off. It was too quiet, too still. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. "Captain, we've got everything under control," Harris said, her voice calm. She was working on the ship's systems, trying to keep everything running smoothly. But Marshall could sense the tension that had been building in the air for hours. Everyone was on edge. Without warning, the lights on the ship flickered. The steady hum of the engines started to slow, and the control panels went dark. Marshall's heart raced. This wasn't a simple glitch. "Captain, "We've lost power to the cloaking system," Hera shouted, her face pale. "The pet. It's not responding. Someone's tampered with the systems." Marshall's eyes narrowed. It didn't take long to figure out what was happening. Someone was sabotaging the ship, and it was clear who the culprit was. He turned sharply toward Cole, who had been acting strangely ever since the pet's powers were revealed. "What did you do?" Marshall's voice was low, dangerous. Cole stood frozen, the sweat on his forehead betraying his panic. I had to do it," he muttered, his eyes darting around the room, avoiding Marshall's glare. "The pet's too dangerous. If we don't destroy it now, we'll never survive. You don't understand. This is the only way." Marshall's blood boiled. The crew had trusted each other for years, and now one of their own had betrayed them. A rogue soldier had compromised everything they'd worked for, and now they were exposed. "You fool," Marshall roared, his anger shaking the room. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The ship's cloaking system, which had kept them hidden from the alien fleet, was now completely offline. The screens flickered back to life, but it was too late. The enemy fleet had already detected the ship's location. A blaring alarm filled the control room as the tracking system identified the fleet's approach. Outside the ship, the stars began to shift, and in the distance, the massive shapes of the alien warships appeared on the horizon. Marshall's stomach dropped. They were out in the open, and the enemy was closing in fast. "We're exposed," Harris shouted. "We need to get the cloaking system back online now." The crew scrambled to fix the damage, but time was running out. The enemy ships were on an intercept course, and they wouldn't hesitate to attack. The crew worked in overdrive, but without the cloaking system, they were sitting ducks. The enemy fleet was already powering up their weapons. As Marshall glanced at the screens, he saw the alien ships beginning their approach. There was no time left to hide. The betrayal stung, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let his crew die without a fight. "Prepare for battle," Marshall shouted. "All hands to stations. We fight now." The crew rushed to their posts, and the ship's weapons systems powered up. Despite the damage caused by Cole's sabotage, they weren't giving up. But even with the ship's defenses at the ready, they were severely outgunned. The odds were stacked against them. Meanwhile, Cole stood in the corner of the room, his head lowered, regret eating at him. He had thought he was doing the right thing, but seeing the alien fleet approaching, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. He had put them all in danger, and now there was no way to undo it. The captain's voice rang out, full of authority. "We'll fight together. We've come this far, and we'll keep fighting. No one is going to take us down. Not today." The crew's morale had been shaken, but Marshall's leadership shone through. He was calm under pressure, and his determination spread through the ship like wildfire. Everyone rallied together, putting their trust in their captain and in each other. The enemy was closing in, but the humans weren't going down without a fight. With everything they had, they would defend their ship, their lives, and the alien pet that had become their key to survival. The betrayal had almost cost them everything, but it had also strengthened their resolve. As the ship braced for impact, Marshall's grip tightened on the controls. He wouldn't let the betrayal define them. This was their moment to prove they could overcome anything, even the most dangerous odds. Together, they would face the enemy head-on, no matter what came next. The human ship had finally emerged victorious. After months of fighting against the technologically superior alien forces, against all odds, humanity had prevailed. The once seemingly weak humans, viewed as nothing more than mere insects by the alien race, had proven their resilience, their strength, and most of all, their determination. It was a victory that would be remembered for centuries, and it all came down to one unexpected hero, the alien pet that had been abandoned to die on a desolate, dying world. The pet, once seen as nothing more than an oddity, a creature unworthy of any attention, had turned out to be the key to humanity's survival. Its strange powers, its abilities, and the unexpected loyalty, it had shown to its human rescuers had turned the tide of battle. It wasn't just a creature anymore. It was a symbol of hope, a symbol of what could happen when humanity came together to fight for what was right. It was no longer a discarded thing, something to be left behind in a moment of desperation. No, the pet was a hero, one that would forever be etched into the history of this human fleet. The captain stood by the viewports of the bridge, staring out into the vastness of space. His mind was still processing everything that had happened. Just hours ago, they had been in the middle of a fierce battle, a battle that they had no right to win. But they had won. Against all expectations, against all the odds stacked against them, they had emerged victorious. And at the heart of it all was the alien pet, a creature that had been abandoned, left to die, and yet had saved them all. Behind him, the crew moved silently, as if they too were still processing the incredible turn of events. But one thing was certain: the victory was theirs, and it was not just a victory over the aliens. It was a victory over doubt, fear, and the belief that they were the underdogs. They had fought not just for survival, but for what was right, for justice, and for a future where they would no longer be looked down upon by those who considered themselves superior. The humans had won, not just with weapons, but with heart, unity, and strength of spirit. The pet was no longer hiding in the shadows, its glowing form now visible for all to see. It had been healed, its powers fully restored, and it stood tall, no longer weak or afraid. The pet was a companion to the humans now, and in a strange way, it had become part of the crew. The bond between it and the captain had grown stronger with each passing moment, each shared glance, each quiet understanding. The captain, once skeptical of the creature, had grown to trust it, to see it not as an alien but as a friend, a companion who had proven itself time and time again. The crew, too, had accepted the pet, though some were still uneasy. After all, it was an alien. But the pet had proven itself, and in this new world where humanity had to forge its own path, the crew knew that they could not afford to be divided. They had to be united, not just with each other, but with all the allies they could find, even if that meant trusting a strange creature who had no place among them. As the ship sailed toward the distant stars, leaving behind the wreckage of the battle, the crew found a quiet moment of peace. The sounds of the battle had faded, replaced by the hum of the ship's engines and the gentle swaying of the crew in their seats. It was a rare moment of calm, a moment that had been earned through sacrifice, loss, and finally, victory. The captain walked to the bridge's observation deck, the pet following him closely. Together, they stood, side by side, gazing out into the void. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibilities. They were no longer running from danger. They were moving toward a new beginning, a new future. The captain looked down at the pet, his hand resting on the railing. "You've earned your place here," he said softly, almost to himself. The pet looked up at him, its glowing eyes reflecting the stars. It was clear that the pet understood. It had saved them. And now, in return, it had been given a home. No longer would it be alone. It was no longer a creature to be abandoned. It was family. The crew, though they were still scattered throughout the ship, shared this moment of peace. The victory had been hard won, but it had united them. They had all fought together, humans and aliens alike. They had fought for survival, and in doing so, they had built something more than just a fleet. They had built a family, a group of individuals who were no longer just humans or aliens. They were something more. As the ship sailed through the stars, leaving behind the remnants of the battle and the broken bodies of their enemies, the captain and the pet knew that they were not alone anymore. The battle was over, but the war for their future had just begun. The galaxy was vast, and there would be more challenges ahead. But for now, they had won. And that victory was more than just about defeating the aliens. It was about proving something to themselves. They were not weak. They were not inferior. They were not to be discarded. They had fought for what was right, and they had won. The captain gave the pet one final glance, a soft smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It wasn't just a creature. It was a reminder of everything they had overcome, everything they had fought for. The pet was the symbol of hope, of strength, and of a new beginning. It was the proof that, no matter how advanced or powerful their enemies might be, humanity would always find a way to rise. The final shot from the observation deck showed the human ship gliding through the endless stars, the captain standing tall, the pet by his side. Together, they were ready for whatever came next. Whatever the universe had in store for them, they would face it together. And so, the journey continued with the humans, once the underdogs, now standing tall, with a new ally by their side, ready for the challenges of the future. They had survived. They had won, and they had a future to build. The story of their victory would be told for generations, a story of strength, hope, and the triumph of humanity.